We're doing something different, and I owe you the disclaimer of this one's for photo and video nerds, and if you don't fit into that category, you're going to probably fall asleep to this video. And so I guess you're welcome. In this particular video, I want to share with you how I've been getting the looks that I've been getting, and it's actually through a plugin for Final Cut called Dehancer. Essentially what Dehancer is it is a plugin that allows creatives to take the digital sensors that have perfect clean images and apply a film emulation LUT or look to them. And what makes Dehancer really, really special is the amount of latitude and the number of different adjustments that you can make to dial in the look that you want. This is the special sauce. This is the thing that has been creating really compelling looking images. And so that's why I want to go over this. I really love this app. I bought it with my own money and I didn't get asked to make this. So I'm going to go ahead and do this out of my own volition, and I hope you enjoy this. Before we get started, I'm actually going to put a couple of clips up, and I want you to take your best guess at which of these clips actually has the Dehancer plugin applied to them. See how many you get right. So now that we're in Final Cut, what we're going to do is we're going to pull in a pre-selected image of Caleb Grady from his pre-Worlds interview, and we're just going to go through the process of what I've been doing to use Dehancer Pro to get this really kind of cool filmic look in my footage. So I've pulled in this pre-selected clip, and the first thing that I'm going to do is go into the information window here on my far right side of my editor here, and we're going to look for this bottom tab, and sometimes it defaults to basic. I've got mine set now to default to extended, and the reason why is I want to select a camera lookup table, and what's going to happen is Final Cut is going to do some calculations based off of the log footage and try to expand this waveform that's to the left of my actual image. And if we watch it as we go and select the S-Log3 S-Gamut 3 Cine, you're going to see that that waveform expands. And you can see that over here in the trees, the light is really blown out. It's actually overexposed. We can see it here on our waveform. And we can also see that there's a lot of red and kind of like purpley hues in the background. And the image looks nice, but it's not really inspiring. But what I like to do as I'm kind of going through this process is I actually like the built-in RE log C profile. And if we watch that same waveform, it compresses down a little bit. The information over here in the trees isn't lost. And so I do really like this as my starting point. Now, if we look at our waveform, if I expand this out just a little bit, you can see that this red line actually extends above the rest of the waveform. And so what I'm going to do is go into my color corrections tab, and I'm going to go to color curves. And I'm just going to drop that red line down in line with the rest of the waveform. And I really like how that's starting to look, but I don't like how blue the image is looking in the shadows. And so what we're going to do is we're going to move that blue shadow portion of the color curves over and get a little bit more standardized looking image before we get started with Dehancer. So this looks really nice. I'm actually really happy. And in previous versions of my videos, this is all of the color correcting I was doing. And it looks nice, but it's not necessarily inspiring. And so what we're going to do is we're going to drop the Dehancer film emulation plugin on top of it. And when we first do that, you're going to notice, number one, that there's additional compression that happens within the waveform, but then also that everything looks awful right now. And My favorite film that I've kind of come across and that I've been using has been the Kodak Ektar 100. And that's been kind of the one that's been treating me the best. Now, we have a couple of options as we start looking, and it starts to get really overwhelming when you first look at it as well, because if you don't know what some of these terminologies mean, then it makes it hard to understand what's going to happen. But underneath this film portion here, because we already know that our basic exposure looks pretty good, you have the option to push or pull. And in pushing or pulling, you're going to notice that there is a hue cast that changes, and that the compression of your waveform will also change as you push and pull. I like the changes that happen to the waveform and to my image as I pull the image all the way to the right and go to 2.0. And I know that I want to add a little bit more exposure to the image without kind of compressing the top end of my waveform. Now that I've done that, what I want to do is I want to go into the print portion. And the reason why I want to do this is this allows us to get kind of different looks within the film emulation. And my favorite profile that I've been using in there has been the Kodak Endura glossy paper. So as we select that, you're going to notice there's a lot more contrast that gets dropped into this image. Now, within the color density portion of the print, I'm going to increase this to 100. And what color density is, kind of if you use your basic color corrections tool within Final Cut and you add saturation, what happens is a lot of times there is an increase in the kind of the brightness of those colors as well. With color density, that brightness doesn't occur. And so you get this really rich looking image, but it doesn't kind of add this unnatural looking almost like highlight to the colors, or increase in exposure value to the colors. Now, I'm also going to start to increase the exposure value of the print as well, because it's starting to get a little dark for my liking, and that's looking pretty nice for me. I'm going to add a little bit of contrast, not quite that much. All right, and you can see that there's quite a bit of grain. If I go ahead and go 100% view here, there's quite a bit of grain on this image, and that's not something that I particularly like. So what we'll do is we'll go down to our film grain, and I'm first going to reduce the amount. Then I'm going to increase the film resolution because I like a cleaner looking image. I move my shadows, midtones, highlights, and chroma quite a bit down. And then as I go full screen once again, you'll start to see a really nice clean looking image with a little bit of grain. And that's more my personal preference. Now, the real secret sauce comes in with the halation tool inside of Dehancer. And what we're going to do is we're going to enable it first, and then we're going to hit mask mode. And as we mask, what will happen is we're going to increase just a little bit of the local diffusion, and you'll start to see the rim of Caleb's helmet and some of the different profiles in the water start to show up as red. Now, halation, what it is it's where halation occurs basically when in film you have light that passes through the film but doesn't go all the way through. It actually bounces backwards. And the halation tool basically mimics that type of fringe highlighting that kind of turns out red in most film inside the app here, or inside the plugin. And it gives you kind of that unique look that you can only find with film. And so this is something that I became more familiar with within watching many videos about this plugin, and I can't say that I knew about beforehand, but this is definitely a tool that allows you to get that more film-like look. You also have the ability to add bloom, vignette, film breathe, gate weave, etc. But one of the other huge benefits to this tool is the monitor. and it's specifically the false colors. It allows you to get an idea of if you're clipping anywhere inside of your image, and then it also gives you an opportunity to show you where you might be clipping inside your image within the monitor. And so right now, this image is perfectly within the range of readable color. There's no information being lost, and I'm pretty happy with this. I am going to go back up to the top underneath input, and I'm going to go to temperature compensation. As I slide this to the right, the image will start to warm up quite a bit, and you'll see those blue kind of streaks at the top of my waveform start to come more in line, and I want them to be almost perfectly in line because I want this image to have basically perfect white balance or perfect kind of looking colors, and I want it to look a lot more like how I remember it, but still have just kind of that film-like look. And so it was just a beautiful sunrise morning. Caleb had made, again, another sacrifice to go out and shoot first thing in the morning, and I really still appreciate all of the time that he's put forward. But we can see that there's some green hue starting to creep in to the image, and so what we're going to do is we're going to add just a little bit of pink hue back into the image, and you'll see those blue lines start to creep up once again. But I'm pretty happy with this image all of a sudden. And we're going to go into our film compression portion. And as I enable this, you'll start to see that the compression of the image will increase, and we'll actually pull more details out of the sky over here. There's a little bit more red and yellow hue starting to pull out of this. And I'm going to go ahead and increase that color density here just a bit. And I'm going to increase the impact of that film compression. And this is just giving us a kind of wider range of colors within the space that we can see. And then if we go into tonal range and really push that, the image starts to kind of fall apart. But we're going to drop that back down to where we started. And that will give us kind of our final image there. I want to go ahead and say that I'm not a pro colorist. It's not, my profession, but I've really been enjoying learning how to use Dehancer, and I really enjoy the way that the application works and how much latitude it gives me. It's always super fun for me to kind of play these videos back and then toggle Dehancer on and off to see the changes that happen. I really like the final look that comes out of this application or out of this plugin, and yeah, I don't have the skill set to be able to make these changes on my own, and so this has allowed me to do a lot more with a limited skill set. I know this one was really different, and I really appreciate you sticking with me this long. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider doing so. And until next time, I'll see you next week. See you.